Picture the wheat standing shoulder high, edge to edge, gold in the afternoon sun. A family walks the rows their own hands plowed, and every stalk says the same thing. The gamble finally paid. The land is ours. The harvest is real. For one whole season, the wheat keeps every promise it made. Then the wind comes, and the same field is bare earth. The topsoil lifts off it in a thin gray ribbon, the way smoke leaves a fire that's already out. A tenant family stood on that ground once. They inherited grassland, they plowed it fence to fence for one good year, and they sank every dollar and a whole season into the picture of it. Nobody told them the afternoon the ground would leave was already on the calendar. You'll meet that afternoon before we're done, a wall of dust taller than the barn, and what it did to this family's kitchen. Not yet. Here's my end of the deal. No romance, no sermon, no scaring you off the porch. Just honest numbers said plain. The tricks that actually worked. And the history with the years and the agencies attached, so you can check me. We'll walk the land and the water, the garden, the animals, the money. Real questions, answered as we go. The land keeps an honest ledger, whether you're watching or not. So start with the oldest myth of all, cheap land, and plenty of it. The Homestead Act of 1862 handed a settler a whole quarter section for little more than a filing fee and 5 years of work. That's about 120 football fields. That's a staggering gift on paper. But a deed measures dirt, and dirt is only half the farm. The paper promises you the ground. It says nothing about the water underneath it. And the well on cheap land can run dry in July. You picture the garden the way the seed catalog sells it, green climbing, shoulder high. So you dig the whole plot, edge to edge, and you plant every last inch of it. But the honest math is quieter than the picture. A well-run patch feeds you plenty per square foot, and it wants weeding, watering, watching, from first thaw to first frost. Nobody photographs the watching, the daily walk down the rows. The tenant family on the plains believed the same picture, only bigger. They plowed their inherited grassland edge to edge for one good harvest, and for one season it paid. The trouble was buried under their feet. The native prairie grasses they turned under held roots reaching 6 feet or more into the earth. That was an underground web, gripping the soil through drought and wind alike. Plow that web away, and you strip the land of the only thing holding it down. That is the whole mechanism behind the wall of dust. Bare ground has nothing to hold. Then the drought and the wind arrived, and the answer came due. By Soil Conservation Service estimates, the Dust Bowl stripped topsoil off an area near the size of 2 Ohios. Tens of millions of acres turned to blowing dust. The land did not fail them. They removed what kept it in place. Your quarter-acre dies the same way, only smaller. Bare soil between the rows is the tenant field, scaled down. But the same era proves the counter. By some counts, wartime victory gardens grew a good share of the country's vegetables. A backyard plot, done right, carries real weight, the same weight a nation once leaned on. So the mistake that erased a state's worth of topsoil is sitting in most backyards right now, one uncovered bed at a time. So you look at that bare bed and reach for the fix everyone reaches for, a few animals to earn their keep. A goat to clear the brush, a few hens for eggs, maybe a milking doe that pays for itself. The picture is warm and it costs nothing. But the ledger of a living animal starts the day it arrives, and it does not wait for you to be ready. Start with the goat you brought in to clear a blackberry thicket in May. It works fast and it works cheap, and you feel clever. Then June comes, and the same animal that ate the thicket walks through one missing board and eats your tomato seedlings down to the stem. It did nothing wrong. The fence was one board short, and a hungry animal only reads the gap. Now, put numbers behind the picture. Feed runs every month whether the animal earns or not. A raccoon or a hawk takes a bird the week the latch sticks. Fencing is not a weekend. It is posts and wire, and the labor of your own hands, redone every time frost heaves a corner loose. An animal without a boundary is not a gift. It is a cost that walks. What barbed wire settled across a 1,000,000-acre range? One board settles on your quarter-acre. The country learned it the hard way, in the open. From the Civil War to the 1880s, cattle roamed the range with no fence in sight. But barbed wire and new fencing laws, late in the century, carved the West into parcels a farmer could actually protect. A boundary is not a wall against the world. It is the line that decides whose loss a straying animal becomes. So the fence is the whole argument, and most people build it last. They buy the goat, they love the animal, and they leave one board for the spring. But the same board that's missing from the coop fence tonight is the reason next spring's whole flock could be gone by morning. Walk into a homesteader's root cellar and the shelves make a promise. Rows of jars catch the light, tomatoes and beans and peaches lined up like a bank account you can eat. It looks like self-sufficiency finished and paid for. But those jars keep an honest ledger too, and the ledger has one line that doesn't forgive a mistake. A French confectioner named Nicolas Appert worked out the trick around 1809. Seal food inside glass, boil it long enough, and it keeps for months without a cellar full of ice. That single idea became the mason jar sitting on your shelf tonight. The method is old, and it is proven. What it is not is casual. Here is the honest gap. Canning 100 jars wrong doesn't cost you a ruined harvest. It costs you a trip to the hospital, and the difference between the two is one thermometer. Low-acid food sealed without enough heat can grow botulism toxin. No smell, no taste, no warning before you're sick. So the rule is plain. Test the acid, hit the temperature, and check every seal before you trust it through winter. Depression families understood the weight of a full cellar without needing a lecture. A well-stocked cellar carried a household from October to April on almost no cash. Shelves of jars standing in for a grocery bill nobody could pay. That was not a hobby. That was the difference between eating and not. Think back to the Tennant family and their account book, kept honestly right up to the afternoon the ground left. A ledger like that lives in a modern kitchen now, kept honestly. Jar counts, dates, and which batch to eat first. One line per entry, no guessing allowed. The book was always the point, but a book only holds up if the roof and the walls hold too. And the wall a family trusted most was the one they couldn't see coming apart. Take a couple who went off-grid in the high desert and told everyone their power was finally free. Their first winter off-grid said otherwise, fast and cold. The generator wanted fuel, the battery bank sagged in the cold, and a controller died in January, with the nearest repair shop 2 hours out. Off-grid does not mean off the bill. It just changes shape. It means the bill arrives as fuel cans, spare fuses, and the hour you spend on the roof clearing snow off the panels before the sun can reach them. Free power just wears a friendlier name for the same maintenance schedule. The grid itself is younger than most people think, barely a century old in most of rural America. Before the Rural Electrification Act of 1936, roughly 9 of every 10 farms had no power at all. No pump ran on power, no light in the barn, no motor to turn the mill. Within about 2 decades, most of rural America was wired for the first time. But those farm families did not wait around for the wires to come. They formed cooperatives and dug the pole holes by hand before any truck of wire arrived. The power you can count on, then and now, is the power you know how to fix yourself. Which brings you back to a gap under a door. A finger-wide gap ran along that family's kitchen door, and nobody thought twice about it. Then Black Sunday came, and dust taller than the barn turned midday into midnight. The dust poured through that gap ankle-deep across the floor. They swept the dust out for weeks, and it kept finding its way back in. So the homesteader in the workshop seals his barn door by hand every autumn now. A strip of weather felt, tacked tight against the sill. Not fear, memory, the kind of family never quite sets down. The same gap buried a kitchen floor in 1935. Most people forget to check it before the first hard freeze. And what waits on the other side of it this year is not dust at all, but the true bill for this whole life, the one nobody has added up yet. That same off-grid couple sat down at their kitchen table one October and finally added it all up. The barn door held against the first freeze that week at least, but the number waiting on this page felt colder than the wind. They started with the year's cost: fencing, feed, seed, soil, jars, and repairs nothing warns you about. It came to a few $1,000s before a single tomato ripened. Against that they set what the place actually brought in: eggs, vegetables, a winter cellar standing in for a grocery bill they never had to pay. Add both columns honestly, and the first year still finished deep in the red. That gap is normal on any homestead. It is not bad luck, and it is not a mistake. A garden pays you in the second year, once the beds are built and the deer know where the fence is. Hens pay you back once the lumber is bought and the feed routine settles. So most of what you spend early buys next year, not this one, a bill the picture never showed you. This is the same kind of book the Tennant family kept, the one broken off mid-entry, back when their field still stood shoulder-high in the sun. One line per expense, no guessing allowed. They wrote theirs by lamplight, the way this couple writes it now. The book was never the enemy on any homestead. The book is the one thing on the place that refuses to lie to you. That number is likely why most people who start this life never make it to a fifth year. There is a for sale sign leaning at the edge of the plot that same couple built and loved once. You can read the whole story from the road before you even reach the gate. The raised beds have gone to weeds, the coop door hangs open, and the ledger from the last chapter stops after one hard number. That number is why the couple from the kitchen table, the ones who built this place, aren't standing here anymore. They didn't fail at gardening. They ran out of the one thing no seed catalog prices. They ran out of runway. A small plot wants work every day, and the work doesn't take a season off. The tomatoes need water in July, whether or not you slept, whether or not you're tired. The goats need hay in January, whether or not the truck started. Burnout isn't a mood, it's arithmetic, hours out against dollars in, and for the first years, the dollars lose. Add the isolation of a place 40 minutes from the nearest neighbor who understands you, and the honest reasons to quit line up plainly. Cash flow, the body, and a plan drawn from a picture instead of a page of numbers. This is not new. Some historians estimate the 60s and 70s back to the land movement pulled close to 1 million people to rural land. But a large share of them were back in town within just a few years. They loved the idea of the land. The idea does not pull weeds. So the field from the beginning still has no strip of wild grass at its edge, and the sign still stands. The couple believed the glossy farm photo on the wall, and a photo never once balanced a ledger. But the ones who last here, past the 5th year that breaks the rest, all did one quiet thing differently. They did it before they ever signed for the land, and it costs nothing at all. The ones who make it past year 5 did one thing first. They counted before they bought. The land keeps its own account, whether you open a book or not. Picture the panhandle again. That spring in 1935, the sky the color of a dirty coin. Now stand on a homestead today. Young trees planted along the horizon on purpose. 90 years on, the soil under your boots hasn't gotten any kinder. What changed is that somebody finally stopped making the mistake that hollowed it out. Bare ground left naked to the wind, roots torn up for a single good harvest. A windbreak is not decoration. It's the border that field never got back. Now look at that opening pasture the way a bookkeeper does. The morning light on the fence, the goat, the tidy garden bed, each one is a line with a price you now know by heart. Feed near $30 a month. A cord of split oak, cut yourself, nearly free. The startup that runs into the thousands before a single jar earns you back. That framed photo on the wall is still pretty. You just read the numbers under it now. So here is who this life actually suits, and it has nothing to do with how much land you can afford. You suit it if you'll cover every foot of bare soil before the next storm season. If you'll keep a ledger and add a line every October, not once a year in guilt. If you can lose 2 birds to a raccoon and fix the latch instead of quitting. Stay in town, no shame in it. The land feeds whoever learns not to destroy it. Look at your own ledger tonight. Which line goes red first when July runs dry? The well, the feed, or the fence? The land keeps an honest ledger, whether you're watching or not.